At 6:07 a.m., my front door rattled like a storm wanted in, and the woman on the porch introduced herself like a cop who'd lost her patience with humanity. Denise Caldwell. Compliance. Clipboard, laser measurer, the whole kit. And by the time I finished saying good morning, she was listing fines. Like auction lots. Grass at 3.6 inches standard is 3. Or curtains, not ivory or shell Horchwhite. The wrong lumen for neighborhood mood, and a toe tag went on my truck. Because apparently a guy with tools is a threat to property values. And yeah, that happened 2 hours later. The police showed up for a non-compliant individual, looked at my deed, saw my towers of moving boxes, apologized, and told me it was civil. Which is code for good luck out there, man. I bought the last ugly cottage on Gull Point in Seabright, Oregon, to rest my bones and mind after a divorce that took too long and cost too much cedar siding. The color of old rope, a tiny porch with one warm light. The kind of place where the ocean fixes your head if you let it. And I swear I came for quiet, not war. The inbox hit like hail. Friendly reminder then, final warning, then a PDF stack with 46 violations at $200 a day that added up to a number you don't say out loud. Before coffee doormat. Text, not approved, mailbox font spacing. Hostile to readability. Wind chimes accused of creating a non-standard microclimate. And while I was deciding between scream and laugh, I climbed to the attic, tore open a realtor's mystery folder, and found paper that smelled like sawdust and time. A 1953 deed survey, maps with brass markers. I'd actually seen half buried in the dunes, and one line that read like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Shoreline, access easements from marker. 10 to marker 54 run with lot 14 in perpetuity. No collective governance binds those rights without the owner's written consent, which if you've ever been pushed around, feels like someone finally turned on a light. I called my friend real estate attorney Nora Patel, who doesn't do drama, just law, and she said slow and surgical. Get certified copies. Then we talk, and Jake document everything. So I started a folder called Receipts, another called Threats, because neatness is how a person like me stays human. By mid-afternoon, my water was accidentally shut off by a man in a vest who gave me that shrug people use when they've been told not to make eye contact. A city inspector taped a red tag on my door that called my cottage unsafe. Nora called the office, that called the supervisor, that called the installer, who returned with a new shrug and turned the valve back, and at golden hour. Denise went live 1 inch outside my property line, telling the neighborhood that one property like this can drop home values. 15% camera angled to make my porch look like a crime, and then the comments did what comments do. Until a retired teacher named Ruth wrote, "Denise fined me $50 for chalk on my sidewalk." Maybe sit down, and for the first time I felt something shift. The next morning, I was first in line at the county. The clerk in a cardigan looked up like she'd been saving a seat for me, pulled book 214, page 169, as if it were a family photo, and slid an overlay that made the deed lines hug the coastline markers, then stamped 3 certified copies that felt like armor in my hands. Outside, a voice called from an unknown number and told me to meet behind the marina. And I did, because sometimes you gamble on strangers. When the rules are rigged, and Trevor Hale, the HOA treasurer, showed up looking like a man whose stomach had been a fist for a year, handed me a flash drive, and said, "Money didn't go where we said. They made me label beach fees as beautification. The beach was never theirs, and he stepped back like he'd just thrown a grenade that didn't explode. Whispered, "Careful. When Denise loses control, she gets mean," then vanished into the gulls and diesel air of the dock. Back home, the flash drive lit up a map of a different kind. Off-book ledgers, with polite little lies for memo lines, transfers to Blue Sand Consulting, which sounds like a beach cleanup until you notice Denise's initials in the filing's reimbursements to the HOA attorney. Victor Crane, that read like thank you cards dressed as invoices. And while I was printing a process server, handed me a lawsuit, thick as a phone book. Defamation interference, cyberbullying, for posting public documents. And I said, yeah, that happened to nobody in particular. Called Nora, and she laughed like a person who just sharpened a blade. That afternoon, a white van with a magnet that said, "Community Compliance," parked across the street, and 4 men in reflective vests started pointing meters at my wind chimes and taping bright orange zones on my fence, as if tape could make property lines forget themselves. A drone popped up. I stepped out with my phone. Sidewalk is public, fence is not drone. Over a dwelling goes in a report. The drone slammed down fast, like it wasn't built for confrontation, and the men packed up in reverse time, leaving Denise alone at the line with perfect hair and the voice of a person who thinks, rules love her back. We will bring this into compliance. Uniformity protects value, and I said what I had to. Uniformity is cheaper than leadership, and you've been charging for a beach you don't own. Which is when she got that look. People get when a long lie meets a certified stamp. It's not shock, it's math behind the eyes. And she turned away fast, like the air had teeth. That night, 3 figures moved through the dune grass, with the slow, careful wrongness of people who practiced in a parking lot. I hit the floodlights and the battery siren I'd bought. One of them dropped a gas can and tried to bury the evidence with his foot. My cameras caught faces. Plates all of it. Detective Ramos watched the footage and said the quiet part, that's a city councilman and Crane's paralegal. It's going to be messy. And I slept in pieces until the morning of the emergency HOA meeting, when the parking lot looked like a county fair, shrunk to fit into a news van. Len's neighbors clutching coffee kids on tiptoe, the chance of truth thick as the ocean air. Inside, Denise tried authority on 3 times. With a gavel order agenda item, one forced compliance at 14 Gull Point, and the room didn't obey. It leaned forward and called back. "Where's the beach money? How many years did we pay you to walk on land that wasn't yours?" And Nora stood with certified copies that flashed under the fluorescence. Read the line that carried all the weight. Run with the land in perpetuity. No collective governance, without written consent of the title holder. And you could feel people listening with their bodies passing the papers back, like communion reading in whispers or curtain. Marker 54. In perpetuity. I stepped to the mic with my binder labeled, "Start Here," because simple helps. When you're scared, told them about the 6:07 a.m. wake-up. The water shut-off, the red tag. That wasn't real, the fines for a doormat. The microclimate. Chimes, then. The sentence that changed my spine. You charged this neighborhood to use easements that run with my deed, and never once asked for my consent. And Trevor stood from the aisle, like a man lifting his own name off his chest. "The ledgers are here," he said, hands shaking. "Blue Sand is Denise's shell. Payouts went to Crane's firm." The rest weren't reimbursements, and Denise turned a color. "You don't buy in a store," whispered his name like a threat with teeth. The back doors opened, and a state investigator came in, "Miss, With two others, didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. This meeting is being recorded as part of a financial crimes investigation. Please remain civil. Caldwell. You are served with notice of seizure for association records, and the gavel tried to compete with that. But wood isn't metal. This is private. You can't. Denise started, and the investigator gave her the tide stares down sand look. Ma'am, you are in receipt of a custodial summons, and the room exhaled for the first time in years. Denise reached for the script that used to work. Without standards, you'll have boats in driveways, flamingos, chaos. And in the second row, Ruth lifted a tiny plastic flamingo like a flag, and the room laughed. The kind of laugh that heals, not mocks. And someone called a vote. No confidence in the board, hands went up like a wind moving through tall grass. Even the last two board members, heads low and right there, the investigator stepped forward 2 feet, then 2 feet more, and the gavel slid out of Denise's hand, bounced off the mic, and squealed. And I swear you could hear the exact moment power left the room. Not a bang, just a pressure change, like a storm passing, and the windows remembering how to breathe. That's where I choose to end this for tonight, because victory doesn't need fireworks to count. It just needs a line read out loud, and a few neighbors who remember they still own their voices. And if you've ever been fined for a color swatch, or told your porch light was too happy for the block, you know what I mean. So tell me, where's the real line between keeping a neighborhood tidy and letting some clipboard decide what joy is worth? Who gets to draw that line the loudest voice, or the folks who actually pay the mortgage on the ground they stand on? And if you lived through something like this, what did it take to flip it? Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me. If you have to tell me what rules help, and which ones were just control in a nice polo. And if this hit close to home, subscribe. We're not done shining light on this stuff.